Hey guys, it's Justin from birdingoutdoors.com. Today I'm going to be sharing with you more about birding ethics and why it's important for you to learn as a beginner birder. So do stick around to find out more. By the end of this video, hopefully going to convince you that birding ethics is actually a very good habit to practice when you just start out birding, and also the four main categories that birding ethics you should follow. So do stick around to find out more. So you ideally, when you go out birding, you want to have a good experience, right? You want to see birds, you want to just share ideas and experiences with other birders. Then actually you should start from the very basics. And I feel that ethics is one of the things that you gotta learn really early on. If not, then it will become a kind of like a bad habit later on. If you've actually taken like ethics in class last time in school, then you'll probably realize that the ethics is actually being stressed on in a lot of different areas, even in like engineering, medicine, and all, and science. So actually, birding has its own code of ethics, and I think it's important for us beginners to learn and to familiarize with these kind of like rules. Although they are like kind of like soft rules, you want to abide by them to have a good birding experience. So let's just dive right into the different aspects of birding ethics. So actually, I read up a lot online on different articles, and so I kind of like summarize what is the general idea and like how a beginner actually sees it. So if you're a beginner birder like me, then come join along with me and let's find out more about birding together. So I've researched a lot online, I've read through articles, and I just summarized it into four main aspects. So the first aspect is to respect birds. Of course, if you're going birding, you ideally want to, of course, you need to be able to respect the birds. If not, if you don't respect the birds, then the birds won't be around for you to go birding, if you know what I mean. Of course, uh, if you're, chances are, if you're a birder yourself, you've at least started to develop a little love for the birds in certain areas, and of course, love like requires respect. You know, in every relationship, you want to have a certain respect for the birds. You want to have a good distance, or like a good, how to say it, give the birds space. So we want to respect and protect the birds for as long as we can, so we can observe them for as long as we want, and for this hobby. So the first part of this respect birds category will be to develop a birds first mentality. So okay, maybe you've heard of the phrase ladies first. I mean, it kind of like stems from a gesture of respect of gentlemen in the past when they practice like chivalry. Of course, in birding terms, I don't mean to like hold doors open for birds, but like, of course, we want to have like this do no harm mentality to them. So like in the field of medicine, the do no harm is actually like a pledge that as part of the Hippocratic oaths for the doctors to do no harm to the birds. And then the what I actually mean by do no harm is that you perform a certain action that may actually you don't perform any action that may influence the bird's behavior, and you always think before you act, and you also actually think of what kind of impact you will have on the birds. So if you love wild birds, you will not want to harm them and like cause them to fly away in terror, or like cause them to be alarmed or distressed. So this what it actually means is do not shoot or like throw things at them in order to like get them to fly or to harm them. And that's what I mean by do no harm. So the next point would be um, keep in mind the bird's welfare before you do any data collection or research. So let's say if you're trying to like record bird sounds or even take a nice picture of a bird, please consider the bird's safety and comfort level first. I mean, different birds have different levels of comfort. Some birds, they're fine with you being near them, like crows and all that. So they're really used to being around humans. So that's fine for that kind of bird. But some birds are not too comfortable being around humans. So an undisturbed bird is the way you should view it. So the bird should not notice your presence, or at least not fly away when they see you, or feel like a bit nervous when they see you. And if you're performing any like actions or recordings that cause distress to the bird, then I would suggest that you do not force it. Just make sure the bird is not being this livelihood and his lifestyle is not being influenced when you try to do your data collection or research. Like let's say if you're recording like how many birds are in the area, where you're logging them down, or just like checking on their nest. So make sure that you don't like go out and like I mean, if your presence there can like cause a bird to fly away, then please do not do that. Okay, then the next part will be to educate yourself and be aware of birds' lives. And in my previous point, I mentioned that we shouldn't move closer to shouldn't move too close to the bird, such that we're in their comfort zone. And you may ask the question like, how can I know that a bird is uncomfortable, or what makes a bird uncomfortable? Okay, so then it begs the question that you need to learn how to tell if a bird is distressed. So it's important to know whether a bird is distressed so that you know when you're overstepping their boundaries, and you need to know the distance of when it's too close to their comfort. So some telltale signs are loud alarm calls, birds flying right in front of you to redirect their attention, or birds taking an upright alarm posture. I mean, in some cases, birds actually, like, I mean, I know some instances of some birds who are like crows, they will actually swoop down to people who are walking by just to like kind of chase them away. So if they're doing something like that, then it's too close. You just back off. Don't go too near to the birds. And in order to not go near and let that happen, you need to be aware of bird territories. So birds are actually there are some birds that are actually very territorial, and please do bear in mind that if you find any birds in the wild, you'll be encroaching on the territory. It's like going to someone's house, or at least in their neighborhood. If they feel threatened by you, then yeah, in the same way we can feel threatened, birds also can feel threatened. So do be careful with whatever you do, and whenever you enter into territory, please be mindful of behavior and your volume when you're speaking. Don't make any loud noises, play like loud, jarring music sounds from your phone. To disturb the birds. So. And the next thing to note is to be wary of bird nests. So birds are actually extra careful when they're trying to take care of their nest during the nesting season. It is actually the place where they house their hatchlings and their crutch, and a place to actually house their young. And actually they are instinctively more sensitive to threats, and they're actually more anxious when like a human or any other predator, like any other creature, approaches their nest. So I would try to stay clear of bird nests unless you are like a professional researcher that knows how to handle around being nests, or if you know that your distance from the nest is still quite far off, and if you know this bird is like not too shy about you being near the nest. And of course, all this is just a general guideline and what I feel. So don't take my word for it, but just just try to keep your distance as much as possible. I know that as us humans, we always make mistakes, but it's okay if you actually cause a bird to like fly away or disturb them. It's okay, but just next time you just learn from it, and don't do that action again. So actually, any disturbance to nest is actually easily picked up by parent birds. So please, it will actually cause them unnecessary anxiety, and we don't want them to waste their resources on trying to drive you away, or like being distressed, which in turn they can actually use that energy for hunting and for foraging purposes. So okay, the next important part is do not cause birds to flush. So if you don't know what flushing is like the action performed by a bird when it takes off into flight, when it actually senses some danger around it. So you may actually be tempted sometimes, or as a beginner, like if you want to see a particular bird fly, you want to see its wingspan and all that. You may actually feel tempted to cause the bird to fly in order to get a good shot of its flight, or if you want to see its wings and wingspan. But actually, this will only cause you to not only miss the sighting of the bird easily, but also cause high levels of stress for the bird, especially during the mating, migrating, nesting seasons. This can actually have quite punishing effects on the birds. Just to give an example, like during migration, if birds are they actually they eat a lot of food before they go for the long haul, the long flight, and so after they finish flying, they're really low on energy resources. So every single time they take flight, it actually requires energy and resources from them. So they may actually be too tired, either too tired to fly away, or they are you're actually wasting the resources they can actually use to gather and find other kinds of food sources for the bird for itself. And they may actually be eventually too exhausted to hunt or even attract mates, and then let alone like feed their young after that. So yeah, please take note of this. Yeah, then the next point is to minimize the playback of bird sounds. You know, we're all increasingly connected with the internet nowadays with technology, and we may be tempted to use our phones to play back some bird sounds to like trigger a reaction out of a bird, or just out of amusement and excitement. However, this playback can easily confuse a bird during like a mating season, or it could be an alarm call that you're playing that can be tricking a bird into pursuing an imaginary female bird or imaginary threat just to defend its territory, you know. This is actually dangerous, as the bird will again like waste its resources on you instead of like settling down and procreating or doing any other of its natural activities. And especially okay, if you live in a area like in my country, Singapore, then you would know that there are lots of migratory birds that come over during the migratory seasons. So the next point I want to cover is no harassment of rare migrants birds. So I know it may sound a bit ridiculous to say this, but basically simply put, no harming of birds. Some people may be tempted to like throw sticks at them, stones, just to trigger a kind of reaction or want to see them or hear their alarm call. It's actually especially critical for rare migrant birds that do not frequent our areas. During the migration seasons of the year, the birds actually fly across entire continents just to survive and tide out the cold of their resident country. And disturbing these birds will have detrimental effects to their energy level, and especially when they're covering a very long flight to reach their destination, and they may not have enough energy and time left to hunt thereafter. So, and if they are rare migrants, you want to like treasure them, right? You want them to stay for as long as they can, and hopefully they can come back again next time. But if you're doing these things like these, then it's like kind of discouraging and like stopping the birds from like it's one less reason to come again, right? So yeah, please do not do that. Yeah, then the next point I want to cover is on light discipline. I have actually written an article on birding at night, so you can actually go to birdingoutdoors.com/night, birdingoutdoors.com/night, where I actually wrote an article on how I shared the importance of various aspects of night birding, and one of them is actually light discipline. So if you don't know what light discipline is, it's actually a concept that I developed over time during my army days, which is to never shine your flashlight over knee length at night. And it's actually it's a technique to prevent accidental shining of a ray of light in a bird's eyes, or a sleeping nightjar, or any other nocturnal bird like an owl at night. And since nighttime may be the only time, or like for certain nocturnal birds to hunt, when you temporarily blind their eyesight, they kind of like have a less time to go and do their hunting. So let's say if a certain bird only hunts at like dawn or dusk, then if you blind their eyesight, then they may not be able to see and perform their hunting to feed themselves throughout the night, and to give them the energy they need throughout the night. So make sure you always maintain your light discipline when you're birding at night. Okay, so the next point I have is on sharing bird habitat locations. So actually, if you look in those online birding community groups, especially like in my area Facebook groups, it can be quite typical to share the location of rare migrant birds in your region, or even like location of like nests of birds. But before you upload a picture of your rare lifer migrant bird sighting, you need to consider the repercussions of your actions. So when you share its location, there are many twitchers. So twitchers are like birders who actually come to a certain location just to find a certain bird. So when you share its location, you're attracting a lot of these hordes and hordes of twitchers who will like trample on the ground, just enter into the bird's territory, and then will flock to see the same lifer bird that you spotted. So this may actually affect the comfort level of the birds that are trying to visit your region, and they may actually think back twice on whether they want to come back to your region again during the next migrant season. And additionally, some photos, if you've taken some photos on your smartphone, it actually captures a bit of location data. So make sure that you erase any of those location data before you upload to a certain platform so that it's not traceable. And yeah, so that's one thing you need to take note of, like smartphone photos, because it always has location data tagged to it. And yeah, rare birds need their privacy. Okay, this one is, I'm not sure area, but it can be quite obvious. Do not use drones for bird watching. Like, I know some of you may love technology and you love to take drone shots, but you may actually think that, some of you may even actually think that drones are good to go into those hard to reach places, just to go and find birds that are more shy and like out of reach, like you can't really walk to, like in a swampy area or on a mud flat or something like that. Actually can be easy to forget that these drones are loud. Like so currently drones are still very loud, like machines. So they have actually a really loud noise that can actually scare off any birds that you may approach, and affecting their privacy and their quality of life. So they may actually be so aware of that drone that they may interrupt their daily activities. So yeah, do take the consideration that birds may even attack your drone, and then you don't want your drone to like drop in the water and then spoil. Yeah, I don't want birds to like destroy your drone also. It's really expensive, I'm sure. So another tip to take note of for anyone who is a bird photographer or birding photographer. So it can actually be a great hobby because of course you want to take pictures of birds and you want to share them. You want to promote the beautiful, you want to like show off your beautiful bird you've taken photo of. But do make sure that you don't turn on your photography flash. I mean, as a beginner birder, you don't want to make this kind of mistake. If you turn on your flash accidentally, which I've actually done before, I turned on my flash and I tried to take picture of this nightjar at night. It's a mistake. It straight flew away, and I learned from my mistakes, and I hope you do too. Okay, and these flashes can actually have a big flash, a big shock to the birds, and you eventually disrupt their daily activities. So if you want to achieve a brighter picture, you can always adjust the exposure, and then I'm sure there are a lot of resources online on how you can do this without a flash. Or yeah, so I'm really not an expert in photography, so you can do that research yourself. And okay, this one is kind of an important point. So keeping your distance. So this is like the easiest one to observe. When you're observing birds, you want to keep your distance. And note that different birds can tolerate different levels of human presence, so that this distance will actually differ among different kinds of birds. But ideally, you want to stay like hidden in a bird hide or like in a camouflaged like hideout, where you can actually break the silhouette of your body. Because if your body is like that, but then like the trees are they all have a different silhouette. But if your body looks like this, they can actually see, like they can actually see your outline of your body. So do remember to wear like camouflage clothes and sit from a distance to prevent them from being alarmed. Oh yeah, then the next point is no laser pointers. So this one I really absolutely cannot tolerate, because I still hear stories of other birders experiencing this outdoors. Laser pointers at high intensities for birds or for humans, it will actually cause skin and eye damage to the birds, and it actually cause a lot of confusion to the birds. It is not something that's like natural in the wild. It's not light, and yeah, there's no laser in the wild. So if you want to do something other than laser, you can try to, instead of using your laser to point at a certain location saying that, oh, the bird was there, this over here, you can actually try learning how to describe the trees, the vegetation yourselves. So it's an important skill for a birder to be able to describe a certain location where you see your bird, and it's important to learn to do that so they can communicate with other birders on a bird's location, rather than using your laser pointers. Okay, then coming to the next point, do not handle birds if not trained. So if you're not trained to handle birds, like what I mean by handle is like actually holding them or touching or dealing with any physical touch of the birds, do not attempt to handle birds if you're not professional, simply put. And this means that if you spot a baby bird on the grass litter, this does not mean that it actually needs help, but it could actually mean that it can actually be a natural phenomenon where the particular bird species that you're making, that you're helping, actually is a natural phenomenon of the bird trying to learn how to survive on its own. So you never know that. So I would say leave that to the experts, and do contact the relevant bird conservation organizations in your area, and please do not attempt to touch the bird. All right. So that was the entire part on the first point, which is to respect birds. Move on to the second main category, which is to respect fellow birders and other people. So when you go out birding, you may not always be alone, although you may go birding alone. There may be other birders out there. So chances are there'll be other birders who are looking at a specific area and looking at a specific bird. Do ensure to display proper good etiquette to them, and as birders, we all represent the birding community. So it's not just birders that you're interacting with, it's also members of the public, and you want to put on a good front as a birder. You don't want to have a creepy, you don't want to appear creepy, or you don't want to appear nasty in front of other people. So do make sure that you put on your best behavior. So there are a few ways you can do this. Let's see. Okay, do not purposely disrupt other birders' activities. So sometimes you may see that other birders are already in the process of setting up a good sideline of a rare bird in the optic gear. And if you happen to see them along the side of a trail, be mindful of your noise level, as there's a possibility there's a bird in the vicinity that they're looking at. And the last thing you want is to like scare the bird and then cause the birder to rage at you because you chased away the bird. And there's one thing you can actually take note of is that when you go past the birders, do make sure that you don't accidentally like kick or like run into them, and do make sure that you are respectful of their space and don't like try to barge into their sideline. And okay, then the next part is on sharing knowledge with fellow birders. Okay, do make sure you keep your noise level low when interacting with fellow birders. I mean, this does not mean that you don't communicate at all, because actually I do encourage you to communicate and talk with other birders to share your knowledge. But speak in a low and soft tone, and this is so that you can actually still share information with your other birders in the area. But of course, you do not want to be loud such that it affects the bird. And if your bird hears you and flies away, then everyone will just stare at you and like, hey, what are you doing? So you don't want to be in that position as a beginner. And I don't encourage you to do that. So sharing is caring. Everyone wants to see a rare bird, and if you encounter a bird that you're not familiar with, you do consider asking others for their ID help, or like where to find the bird. And when you ask for help, do consider the appropriate times to ask. Like if others are preoccupied with looking and then like observing and arranging their camera for the bird, then just wait a few seconds. It won't hurt. And then after, when they are like kind of seen the bird enough, then you can ask them, hey, can I have a look, or like could you describe to me where the bird is and what's the ID and where's the location. So yeah, that's how you can interact with fellow birders. I'm pretty sure this is quite common sense to you, so yeah, just do that. Okay, so the next point is on being courteous to recreationists. Okay, so when you go out birding, it's not always about birders and like people who know about birds and the ethics in birding. So you need to be courteous to them. You may encounter a recreationist or simply a member of the public that isn't actually a bird watcher. And then in these cases, you need to know that it is when the true value of bird ethics it shines, and you need to not stay quiet about certain things, simply put. You need to educate them on how to respect the space of the bird, and do not scare the bird into flight when they see them. So if any recreationist does the following, all these guidelines that I've listed, then it is do not be afraid to say that they're doing the wrong thing. Be firm and let them know, but please do be polite about it, and speak in a kind tone and be courteous. I think this has to be done with like a good heart, like you have a good intention when you tell them about it, and do try to speak to them in the more of a casual and educating kind of way, but do be firm with them about it. Like you don't want these people to pick up these habits and like it will snowball over time, and everyone will just think it's okay to do these kind of things. So you want to put a stand on that, and please do make sure you do that. Okay, so one more thing when you're going outdoors, you need to dress appropriately. If you don't dress appropriately, you're just gonna stand out, and birds are gonna see you. So that's one of the ways you can avoid being spotted by the bird. And so one good tip is to just put on any drab colors or like khaki colored clothing, and please do not wear any bright or neon clothing. In doing so, you only attract and become more discoverable to birds, and it's actually very jarring to see such a sight. So of course, do be prepared with your own gear before you head out birding, so they don't have to constantly rely on another person to like borrow their binoculars to spot a bird. Next will be to speak quietly and minimize unnecessary talk. When you're out in the field, we tend to like to speak loudly to communicate, but like as birders, we need to keep talking to the minimum. We want to see as much of wildlife as possible. We want to capture the sights, the sounds, and basically soak in the entire nature and the natural environment. So it may actually provide a good mental health benefit to relieve stress when you learn to listen more and to talk less. This is a very important point, the next one. Do not point your binoculars at people or their residences. Firstly, you don't want to be called out as a creep and tarnish the whole birding community across the world. Secondly, you don't want to be an invasion, you don't want to invade on the privacy of the residences nearby. And this could actually escalate quickly if you are not careful. So do please keep your binos to the birds, please. Okay, next, put your phone in silent mode. So you can either turn your phone off or put it in silent mode. And I know like technology is really good, and there are a lot of bird apps nowadays. So bird apps. Yeah, so these apps are really useful on your phone. So if you don't want to switch off your phone, you can always turn it to silent mode. And you don't want it to unnecessarily ring like some ringtone or alarm that may actually cause a bird to fly away or like disturb the peace and quiet of the natural outdoors. Okay, next we'll cover on how not to disturb other people's optical devices. So if you see others doing digiscoping, looking through their spotting scopes, don't occlude their vision. Try to like don't like try to jostle around for the perfect ideal spot on the sideline. This is actually bad etiquette, and other people's optical devices are not your property, and you don't want to be responsible for if you eventually kick them or hit them, and it will actually cost a lot. So don't do that. Don't do unto others you don't want them to do unto you, basically. And yeah, please do consider the potential disturbance to birds before advertising the presence of a rare bird, like what I covered just now. If you've taken a nice picture of a bird on social and you want to post it on social media, do make sure that you know that like the context of the bird in this particular area. Like in recent community groups, I've seen some admins in my bird community group, they've actually taken down some posts of a certain bird which they felt like was during its nesting period and nesting season and period, and they didn't want any disturbance to the bird. So they've actually taken down those pictures so that people will not know the location of the bird, and just let it do what it needs to do. So do make sure that you are responsible of when you're posting the bird. The third main category I need to cover is on respecting the environment. So when you're going birding, you're going to be outdoors, and even if you're birding from your backyard, it's still the outdoors. So when you're on the field, you may realize that there are not only birds. Of course, you realize there are not only birds in the environment. There are trees and bugs, like all kinds of animals. And there's actually an entire ecosystem that you need to be mindful of other than just birds. So one thing you can actually do is to be aware of the environment, just be more aware. And firstly, you can support by being an advocate in the protection and support of conservation of your bird habitats. And birds may be beautiful, but the habitat they live in is also beautiful. and without the proper habitat, the birds won't survive. So there's we need to constantly increasingly educate ourselves as like beginner birders. We want to learn as much as we can on like the modern advances in the development in our area. So make sure that they don't actually clear these areas, and we need to fight for our feathered friends. And we don't want to be responsible for the protection of the habitats of our birds, and so that we can we don't want any birds that were commonly seen in our area to be extinct. Yeah, I strongly feel about this. As recently, in my country, they recently accidentally cleared the entire area accidentally. So it's really sad to hear that. And after seeing like how birds, um, after learning birding, I actually appreciate like nature a lot more, and I'm actually more supportive of protecting and conserving like natural habitats for our flora and fauna. So not just birds, but like even the monkeys in my area. Okay, so another point to cover. So when you're out in the outdoors, there'll be more than just birds. There are other animals, and when you're out there, you may be tempted to actually feed the birds. I mean, feed the animals. That you may never know that if by constant feeding, they increasingly get to know humans, and that humans bring food. So you do not want to imbue in them that the humans will constantly feed them and give them to make them actually reliant on humans for their source of food. We want them to be able to participate in the ecological niche, and to hunt and gather food for themselves, to be self-sufficient and not rely on humans. So we do not want to be part of their food source. We don't want our food to be part of the food source. And next, we have do not damage any habitat. So in the spirit of preserving the habitat and the wildlife in your area, you should not pull off any branches or leaves or flowers, or just demonstrate something for your benefit. Neither should you be plucking plucking fruits off trees, unless you know like this. I mean, it's really depends on your area though. Like in my country, it's kind of illegal to like pluck fruits off trees just to eat, unless it's grown by you. So I know in some countries, you're actually allowed to do that. So do like ensure that your country is okay with it, and your regulations and your conservation agencies are okay with it in your country. Yeah, this can actually have a great consequence, because if everyone wants to pluck a leaf from the tree, if 1,000 people walk past that tree and everyone plucks a leaf each, then like the tree won't have no leaves left. So yeah, this is something to keep in mind. Oh, then the last most important thing about the environment that you need to take note of is to not litter. So if you're heading out to going camping or like trekking, hiking for a very long time, then do consider bringing along your own trash bag to store your trash. Do not litter on the forest floor, as it will only make the ecosystem and the environment rely on these resources as their source of food, and make the animals reliant on them for their survival. And in the worst case scenario, these chemicals in these processed foods that we eat may actually be poison to the animals, and harm their internal organs. So even if there are no trash bins available, do bring along your own trash bag. And the last main category that we're going to cover today is on respect authorities. So when you're out birding, you should be aiming to perfect your birding skills and not breaking the law. And in order to follow these guidelines, in order to do birding, we don't want to be doing illegal things, and we want to learn to respect the authorities. We want to continue this hobby for a long time, so please ensure this happens. And I've actually written an entire blog on this entire thing about birding ethics. So if you go to birdingoutdoors.com/ethics, I actually have written a few more points over here on all the things that I've covered in this video. If you're a beginner and you really want to know more about birding ethics from like a beginner myself, I'm no expert, but if you can actually take the time to learn, and if you want to learn alongside me, then do make sure you go to birdingoutdoors.com/ethics, where I really list all these examples and things that you can actually practically do to not make mistakes when you're going out birding. And I feel that birding ethics is a really important thing, so do make sure you check it out from like one beginner to another. And I honestly don't want you to make the same mistakes as I did. So yep, that's all for today's video. Thank you for watching this far, and if you've actually watched this far, do give me a like, and I'll it really help me out in this channel. Thank you.